coming from someone who has already, supported my vision. We already had a family of 6 children, everything else.
Yeah.
We move in this direction and we trying to get things done and things come together.
Sure.
That now I decided to marry again and practice polygyny at a certain stage of my life. And it's like, okay, at that point you turn the switch, like you mentioned a little while ago. Now you're the enemy. Now you get attacked and you all this type of. I'm the same individual, same person. Assalamu alaikum, peace. I'm Coach Nazir.
And I'm Coach Fatimah, his wife.
We are 2 of the 3 founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships, as well as 2 of the 3 authors of the book, Let's Talk Polygamy. And also, we are the founders of the OPR community, which is a supportive community for those who practice polygyny or want high-level polygamy education. So, as you can notice, or as you do notice, Coach Nyla is not here. And for those of you who don't know, I practice polygyny, so I'm married to Coach Fatimah and Coach Nyla. But today, we really want to share, at least for those who are considering practicing polygyny or are ready to have the conversation, some of the errors or mistakes that we've seen or that we have felt in part of the journey in transitioning to polygyny. For those who don't know, we also conduct a polygamy masterclass at polygamymasterclass.com. Get details on that. But it's very, very important to know the different stages and phases you go through. And I teach that to the men specifically. So one of the most challenging parts is the transitioning. All right, basically from monogamy to polygyny part. So today what we're going to discuss and share are some of the errors and the biggest challenges or moments that we see from our partner in that transitioning phase. So I'm going to speak on some issues or challenges I think, made it a little more challenging for me in the whole process from Coach Fatimah, and she will share the same.
And I'm laughing because I know I made it challenging. So, well, the most obvious thing is not knowing that Coach Nazir married Coach Nyla. That probably was one of the most difficult things, because then that left me with all my assumptions. And my assumptions were very vicious ones. So I learned that I started this attack, and I thought about it as a war. It felt like an internal war. So what I did was I felt attacked. Then I was like, okay, now I'm on the attack and the defensive. And then I kind of pulled back from that and I said, okay, these are the first row of soldiers that I'm going to unleash, and then I'm going to pause, and then something else happened. And then I said, this is the second part of my army. Pause. Here's the third. So it was just like war, and I had to replay it in my mind, because you're warring with not having information. You're warring with different stages of grief, and then you're warring with your ego. You're warring with acceptance. So I kept going to war constantly on these different things. And then there's the war against yourself. So one thing was, I said I could have stopped this whole war, the battle, if I hadn't have waited for Coach Nazir to open up the conversation. Because I'm like, if I could go back into time, I'd have that conversation, and I would initiate that conversation if I saw that maybe he wasn't able to. And I say able to, because I do believe, and I don't care what, people say, oh, you're just taking up for him. He doesn't need me to defend him. He's a grown man. If I had took the leadership role in that, then I think it would have made the conversation okay to have. That makes sense. I would have been more approachable. But since I was like, well, I'm just going to wait on him to say it, because he's the one that would do it, so he would have to tell me. And I learned that wasn't the most effective thing to do. I'm like, I shouldn't have waited. I was like, dang it, I wish I had just gave a hint. a flicker of hope that we could have the conversation. But just like any young wife, I was like, yeah, but I don't want to share my husband. No, I don't want to share him. I want all that goodness to myself. But yeah, just all jokes aside, I'm gonna see if you're gonna agree, but I don't know.
I mean, I don't need to agree. It's our perspectives. But yeah, of course. I mean, I see that clearly. It's one of the biggest challenges, which is why we know firsthand and why we share that, brother, you should be having the conversation up front. Even when you could initiate discussion, conversation is there, period. I didn't for a number of different reasons. I'll share why in a second. But regardless, best practice is to deal with it up front, no matter what. I don't care if it's premarital, if you're not married. You can be talking about if that's going to be your intention one day. You may not know it's going to be your intention one day, but you could also grow and evolve and change to a whole different person. I mean, you married 5 years, 10 years. If you've been married 20 years, you're the same person as the first year of marriage. There's a lack of growth. Just like Muhammad Ali said, I believe. He said, look, if I'm 50 and I'm still thinking the way I was at 20 or if I was at 30, then I just wasted a few decades of my life. So it's a part of maturity, but at least to have that discussion. So yeah, I do agree that, that was one of the biggest challenges to begin with, no doubt. Not dealing with that up front, which is the reason we say, do it. Had a conversation, had hard conversations, and we share strategies and stuff on how to do that. And we go a lot deeper, of course, in the OPR community as well. So yep, that will be one of hers. Mine, of course, not necessarily of course, like me or what's going on in my head like that, but mine is that I didn't feel I had the ability to approach her on this specific topic because things that had happened already prior to. So I'm dealing with the thing of, all right, she's already talking and coaching people about polygyny and bringing Islamic perspective and all this type of stuff. So she knows the deal clearly. I mean, if you're Muslim, you know what's up. Polygyny is a potential option. All right, it's not the majority or anything like that. It's a very small number when you look at it across those who practice it. But not being able to go ahead and it's not even not having the conversation. You can have the conversation. The challenge is whether or not you can be able to have it in a peaceful manner.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't like conflict in my household. So avoiding that conversation, somebody not approachable and dealing with negativity and all that, I don't like that. You know what I'm saying? I came from a very unhealthy environment, arguing all kind of garbage and trash stuff like that. I didn't want that in mind, didn't have that in mind. So my thing was I would love to have somebody I can talk to, communicate openly with, let you know this is about, and we deal with it as adults and, mature. So, but, that's idealized. And we deal with that when we talk with different levels of people and levels of maturity and so on and so forth. From my perspective as a man, as the leader, having had the courage to demonstrate that by doing it. And then at the same time, person have to be receptive enough to have the conversation, because I don't care how mature you are, if you're talking as let's say a physics, let's say you're a rocket scientist, because everybody likes to, you're a rocket scientist, and you're trying to explain something to a 3-year-old, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be a problem in communication styles. If you're talking to somebody in high school and you're dealing with somebody in grade school or primary school, it's going to be, issues there. Or if you're coming from different levels emotionally and so on. So that was one of the things I didn't appreciate, was the lack of really just kind of having the control of emotions. But of course, where are we going to get it from? Where was I going to get that from? Yeah. So to be able to have the conversation, we're going to get it from the master. We're not going to get it from anywhere in particular. You know what I'm saying? So there was no trainings and things that we put together on at the time. And you didn't have it at the time either, because you had a whole bunch of people that just sit around and talk crazy about polygyny, or talk crazy about the people or whatever. That wasn't anything that was healthy or supportive. So I would say that's probably my number one issue, is not being able to come to you where it's approachable and having a conversation intelligently and stuff like that.
And I want to give a disclaimer. We're speaking from our hearts and from our experience. So this is not a tit for tat. So he says something, I got to say something, and he gonna say something back. We're not keeping score here. This is something that we're sharing with you all and with each other. So we're learning today too, although we talked about these things, but we're narrowing the list down. And the list is not some laundry list or some task. This is our lives, and we're just letting everybody in for this video of because this is a very intimate conversation to have that we're sharing on a platform. So
you could learn the lessons from it.
That's it. This ain't shots fired at each other.
An intelligent person can learn lessons from the mistakes and things and errors that they make in life. But a wise person is going to learn not only from their mistakes, but also the mistakes of others. Yeah. It really collapses time frames. You don't have to wait and go through a 20 or 30 years of addiction on something to recognize it was wrong. And you wasted 20, 30 years of your life to get to that point. Instead, why not read something or listen to somebody who's been through it for 20, 30 years and decide, you know what, I'm not going to do that, and save yourself from 20 and 30. I'm just saying.
Because we wish we had somebody that did that for us. But it's like, how many people are going to put themselves out there, put their neck on the line and get that backlash to do so? So we're here. And this work is not just about us or, you know, to get brownie points. It's we live this stuff. And we're going to keep talking about it. So another thing I would say that was probably not just difficult, but it was traumatizing for me, was that I didn't feel as though you were emotionally in tune. And it's funny because Coach Nazir just kind of touched on that briefly. And I know him now, personality type, if you all are not familiar with the MBTI personality type indicator, you can take the test at humanmetrics.com. And he's an INTJ. And I had to learn about his personality type, and they have very deep emotions and feelings. However, they'll lead like in a leadership role or in communication with logic and rationale. That's not to say their way is wrong, because people misread them as people that are emotionless. No, it's quite the opposite. They're very emotional, but they're in control of their emotions, and they like to be because it's safe for them. And I had to understand that about him. He's not going to react the way I'm going to react, but I felt very emotionally abandoned in some ways. Like I felt like I couldn't talk to you about emotions. And I feel like that has its limitations with an INTJ. But as we grew, like you were saying, similar to what you're saying, you evolve and you mature. So I'm like, my husband's not 19 anymore. I'm not his 20-year-old wife anymore. So it's a time not to have tantrums. It's a time to listen to someone, not just hear, but to listen to someone else's experience and how they feel in it. That doesn't mean that that's the only way to feel. That just means what they've taken into their heart and how it's changed them, kind of their physiology. So for me, and people have said ENFPs, which I am, can be very emotionally distant, and they can be distant with people, and they can be hot and cold and all these other things. And it's a survival mechanism. So once I pour emotions out or I'm emotional, that means a lot to me. So if I feel like I'm not emotionally safe in that I'm just going to hear logic, then I'll create this distance, which is toxic. It's a toxic trait for an ENFP. Once they start distancing themselves from you, then they're starting to say, I could do this by myself. I don't need you, you know. And then they'll be going, I want the marriage, but I don't want the responsibility. I want the marriage, but I don't want the communication. And that is not going to work. You can't have it both ways. So I had to learn a lot about how I expressed my emotions and not hold everything in and then dump it all out. And then go, okay, now help me. Okay, now deal with it. Because you can't expect somebody to, you back up and dump on them and then go, okay, now let's fix it. You start. You know, you go first. But I know that about me. But I at that time, and it's like, I want people to hear me when I say, when men enter into polygyny, whether you know it or not, it's almost like you got this window of time to work with each other in this vulnerable space and be accepting of the journey of the other, you know, and embrace both sides, not just your own side. So once I, you know, became emotional about it, it was just like, I could almost see you processing everything, because I'm like, I'll bottle it up, I'll be all right. And then you look up one day and it's like, I'm not okay. I'm not all right. And I'm trying to handle it like people have known me to be like, oh, you're the strong one. the rock or whatever. We're all rocks here building. But that about took me out. And I was like, you know what? He's not going to respond to this like an ENFP, Fatima. He's going to respond to this in his way. It doesn't mean you're being ignored. It just means that I've said this much, but I still was like, no, it's that emotional part I was having trouble with that I didn't see a lot of. You're like, right.
No, man, I get it. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But again, the logic or rationale, anything else still plays a role. And I mean, we humans, so I can understand that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm not, and never have been, the coddling coming down to, oh, you hurt your knee, you scraped it, let me give the kissy poo.
Yeah. He's making
I
my
haven't
point.
done it, with the kids. Get up, let's make it happen. That's it's it's different. And then we dealing with something bigger than us. You know what I'm saying? That's the other challenge. I've had that vision. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that I would say was challenging for me is that coming from someone who has already, supported my vision, we already had a family of 6 children, everything else, we move in this direction and we trying to get things done and things come together, that now I decided to marry again and practice polygyny at a certain stage in my life. And it's like, okay, at that point you turn the switch, like you mentioned a little while ago, now you're the enemy. Now you get attacked and you all this type of, I'm the same individual, same person. You know what I'm saying? I'm the same person. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean I'm the same emotionally mature.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I disagree.
But the point is, I'm still the same person.
Yeah,
I still got them same principles, them same values, that same vision for the family has expanded. You know what I'm saying? I'm still that same leader and everything for the family. So when you flip that switch, now all of a sudden that person becomes an enemy and we start launching all these things at them. That right there is problematic to me because some of my strongest core values are dealing with respect, dealing with loyalty, you know what I'm saying? And where I'm from and being part of the streets and being part of the organizations and seeing things in a macro scale. Without those two things, there's nothing that can really succeed within that organization or group or family, anything like that. So that was a major issue for me because that goes to the crux of the matter, and you knowing me better or my history better than anybody else, that posed a significant problem.
I think when you don't know speaking back to not knowing you got married, then it's the same thing what Coach Nyla was just saying, the loyalty and the respect thing. I got tangled up in that. So that's where he was talking about the attack and I was explaining the attack part. We are the same in that area. So when I felt like that was violated on my end, because I was like, okay, I thought we had enough respect between us to have this conversation. Although I'm like, okay, you want to have a conversation, but you got to think about how approachable you are though too, Fatima. And that didn't come overnight. I had to come to the realization of that when somebody else was like, okay, you want to know, but did you want to know? Because it doesn't sound like you wanted to know. And that's why I said you got to commit. You either want to do it or you're not. You either want to know something or you don't. You can't straddle the fence because that's kind of how we got in this mix-up. We both helped in it. But when you were talking about loyalty and respect, now, when he married and I didn't know it, to me, that flew out the window on his end, although he's saying, no, it hasn't. And I had to go, it hasn't. We could still have the conversation. But then I had to go, okay, am I being attacked? Or is this just how things kind of progressed? You see what I'm saying? So I had to make a distinct decision. And this didn't happen overnight. This took some time for me to go, okay, was this an attack? Was this intentional? Because to me, he ain't loyal. To me, he doesn't respect me. And he knows enough about my past and what trauma I had from broken family and broken men and marrying broken women that we weren't going to do it this way. But we never sat down and had a conversation about how to kind of plan that so that these feelings didn't arise. And I also had to learn about polygyny, and so I kind of started studying it intensely after Coach Nazir got married. I knew some basic stuff, but I had to study more after because I was like, okay, you can't secretly marry in Islam. That's not part of Islam. Woo. And then I got around more educated people in Islam. And these are women. And they were like, wasn't your marriage private? Yes, indeed it was. There was a handful of people there when we married. And I mean, it was a small group. And they were like, you got to know the difference between Fatima. You got to know the difference. These are women that have PhDs in Islamic studies, between private and secret. You got to know the difference between the two things because it's very distinct. And because you have given it the wrong meaning, that's kind of how we got here. Okay. So I used to, and Coach Nyla knows this, I used to meet with a group of sisters about polygyny, and they were older sisters, they were educated sisters, some from overseas, some from the US. And they sat me and this other sister down, and Coach Nyla knows who she is too. And he knows her husband, who's also in polygyny. And they walked us through this so that we could change how we felt and how our understanding of it. So then I could give it the right terminology. I could give it the right respect. I could give it all these different rights. And also in that meeting, I think I had told you this before, they kept singing Coach Nazir's praises. It became this, I don't like how your husband did it, but I like how Nazir did his, because he's not trying to force you all together. And they made me find the gratitude in the challenging moments. And I was able to say, okay, that's where I come with that, find what's going right versus what's going wrong. Right. They opened my eyes to that, and they were like, look, this could have went, he could have did this year one, he could have did this, everybody's pregnant at the same time. You do what you want to do, but it was like, it can get ugly, and this is not ugly. And it made me feel better about Coach Nazir, because I think I had made this distorted caricature of him. He's changed in the years to me, and he can disagree, and that's fine, but I see him differently than I did when we were 19, because I feel as though
of course.
He's
changing.
I
think
think
part of evolution.
Right. So when he says, I was the same person, but not to me, he wasn't the same person. But he wasn't this gross, different person.
Yeah, what I mean by saying is I'm not a stranger.
He wasn't.
My values, those things that I'm talking about when I say that.
Yeah, but that's what I got upset about, that very thing. Because in my mind, I said, we have the same core values. We did. I mean, we were very deliberate about when we got married and the plan for our family. We were extremely deliberate about that thing, and we still are. So I knew I'm like, look, I don't do stuff and tell people, well, he'll do it. You just listen to me. He's going to do it. I didn't do that. I'm like, this is my husband. I'm going to talk to him first. We're going to have a conversation. Woo, woo, woo. Or I tell my daughters, I don't know. If there's a boy bothering you, I would love to go out there. But I'm like, tell your father, because he's here. He's available to us. This is part of what our unit is. This is part of our values. This is, me and him didn't allow somebody else to come in and attack our nuclear family. They had to deal with us. You know what I mean? I didn't care who it was. So we had this very solid loyalty to one another. So when you start to question it among the two that started the family, then that feels really, really terrible. So I totally get where I could have did a whole lot of things better. And some people have said I'm rough on y'all, but I have to give you this locker room talk so that these things don't have to take so long to get through. The acceptance part, the respect part, knowing that choosing to be in polygyny, and whatever way you go about it, whether you know about it or not, I still had to attach the fact that you married again and place some honor on it. Because there's so many people around you that want to dishonor it, and they do. They're disrespectful and they say crazy things. But I'm like, I can't care about that more than I care about what honor I'm putting on it. So when people go, do you validate? I don't validate their marriage, but if somebody's around me, I have said, that's his other wife. I'm not going to say that's his baby mama. I'm not going to say that. And I've told people, you're not getting me to call her baby mama. Because then that's insinuating that there was some cheating going on, or my husband's a bastard and all these different things. Because I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still his wife too. So they knew how far they could go with me, but it's the respect of not only our marriage, but your marriage outside of this one that's important to me. So I think, yeah, the attack happens, and it's the wrong thing to do. It's the wrong thing to think. You do whatever you want. I'm just saying, instead of me saying, I feel attacked by you, then he could have dealt with it easier than me saying, okay, he fired shots this way, he getting them right back. Because anybody else, I could just not talk to them. They wouldn't be in my life. Poof, it would be like they were never born. That's how I operate. But when it's somebody I love the most in the whole entire world, by leaps and bounds, I'm telling you, that's not as easy, because I'm like, we got each other's loyalty. I don't have to question that. But when it comes into question, then that's where it gets scary. It gets scary. It's not even like I'm mad. I'm like, you be scared. Because I'm like, this person, like you said, they've been solid this long,
Mm-hmm.
And it matters
it's a way of measuring. That's why we talk about the different levels when you are married, the different spheres that are involved in, when you're married, because what you're talking about is shared marital identity, you know what I'm saying, as a wife and as a husband, and different expectations, many things that are not voiced, they're expected or assumed once you get married, you know what I'm saying? And just because you get married doesn't mean you're also still not your own individual woman, I'm my own individual man, so on and so forth. So we have these different things. But having that shared marital identity is very important. We're not going to go into a whole training or something about that. Probably put it on the screen for you to see right here. It's just kind of what it looks like. But understanding loyalty from different perspectives, because it could be taken that, okay, well, you talking about loyalty to the husband, you talking about loyalty to the wife, and I'm letting you know it's not the same. What I mean, loyalty and understanding what loyalty is, you're loyal across the board, period. That's an all or nothing thing. It's not, well, I'm 95% loyal and I'm 5%. That's not how that works. But the difference is that as the man, as the leader of the family, you still have to lead the family. Regardless, you still have to make decisions that the family may not like or may not understand, that is for the betterment of the family, not just something that's self-serving. So it's just important to understand the difference.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When you're talking about polygyny, you're talking about expanded family, and then just like you talking about people, they come in and taking shots and all this kind of stuff. Well, the fact of the matter is, those are the real homewreckers. Those that want to talk negatively, those that want to throw shade. Polygyny is simply a form of marriage. Mm-hmm. So that same type of shade talked about your monogamous marriage is still somebody trying to break up and destroy the family. And we all know, or Muslims know, whose favorite deed that is. So the person trying to do that is carrying that individual's mission, if you will. But just understanding the difference of it. What?
Yeah, I agree. But what we have to understand about that point too is that we got to know that. But once we know it, we had better not act like we love the fact that that's happening. Because I see a lot of people playing team with the one that likes to destroy marriage and embracing that evil and going, oh yeah, I'm gonna mess this whole thing up. I love it. Let me get in here and wreck this whole thing. The fact that people are so drunk with their own ego and drunk with their own desire to destroy, that to me, it's on a whole nother level. And I think men that are witnessing that, I'm going to say this, because the women are not practicing polygyny. But if there's a woman, a wife, that is embracing that kind of evil and pledging, because that's what it is, you're making a pledge to that evil when you say, I'll just go and I'll just take the kids, or I'm just going to make him pay, or I'm just going to that speaks not only to your character, it speaks to your very soul. So I hate to see in the comments when people say, the women say, I'll take the kids and I'll do this and that. It couldn't be me and I'll just wreck it all. And burn that thing to the ground, huh? And then I have to think about looking in the eyes of my children and being okay with that. You know, so the ones that are embracing evil, you can be hurt and then you can heal too. Some people are okay with it. They feel like they have the right to destroy the family because they're in it. And I have an issue with that. So, you know, I want to come from the energy of, yeah, you can be hurting, but it's just try to show up in the marriage the best way that you can. Try to show up the best way you can.
Yeah, try to do, you know, if you're going to have to regret it and you know it's not right, you got to catch yourself in the moment. That's the difference between adults and children. That's once you're 25 and that prefrontal cortex is fully developed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You have an ability to pause before responding or reacting to something.
Right.
So the sooner we can act like adults, be more mature about it, control our emotions, to be able to express ourselves and have that respected, then the better.
Yes.
So prayerfully, you got some good stuff. And of course, you know, we go deeper in this and other issues in our community, our private community, which we invite you to join. You can do that, oprcommunity.com. So with that being said, what we want you to do is to put in the comments that my favorite thing from this video is, fill in the blank. My favorite thing from this video is, and let us know. We look at the comments, we check everything out. So again, we appreciate you sticking through it. And this also lets us know that you support us by watching the entire video.
Right.
Okay, not just being for a couple minutes and dipping out or just trying to check it out. You know, again, and we appreciate that. That's how you can really show us support. And of course, join our community or the Polygamy Masterclass and the different things that we have if you are serious and not just curious about how to win in this lifestyle and do it right. So any closing comments? We good?
No, we good.
All right, we're going to end with GLC. She going to do the G and the L.
Make sure you're growing intentionally, loving fearlessly.
And connecting on a higher level every single day. Assalamu alaikum. Peace. Assalamu alaikum, peace. I'm Coach Nazir.
And I'm his wife, Coach Fatimah.
And I'm Coach Nyla. I am also his wife.
We are the founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships, as well as authors of the new book, Let's Talk Polygyny Uncensored. We created a polygamy masterclass, and it doesn't matter your faith or your background, your culture, specifically for men and one specifically for women, because we did not have the resources over the past dozen years. So if you ever had concerns or issues or challenges or questions about situations like
insecurity, jealousy, and sometimes anger, and not knowing what your role is anymore in your own family.
I'm feeling guilty of, I'm hurting, or feeling like you're hurting someone, or you're breaking up a family, or feeling like a home wrecker because society doesn't agree with the marriage choice that you decided.
Right, or trying to determine if your leadership is really up to par, and if you have the proper emotional aptitude to deal with the new dynamics that polygamy may bring. How is my family gonna react?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Do I notify my first wife first? Do I do it later? Do I keep stuff secret? All kinds of different things, as well as can love even be equal?
Exactly.
When it comes to how to manage money and time effectively so that you're being fair and just with your wife. So all of these things are extremely important when it comes to learning about polygamy and knowing how to, what's called, do it right.
Right.
Right? So if you want the best practices and learn from those who've already been there and done that and working with it and literally helped over, thousands and thousands of people, then you make sure to click the button to get the full details of each course or the bundle button below to join the first of its kind Polygamy Masterclass.
So you can grow intentionally,
love fearlessly,
and connect on a higher level
every single day.
Look forward to seeing you as students.
Assalamu alaikum.
Peace.
Peace.